Talk about Canada's housing market. The housing agency saying foreign ownership of condos in the country's most expensive markets represent still just a small percentage of the overall market. Joining us now with insight into the Vancouver real estate market is Steve Saretsky. He's realtor and author of the Van City Condo Guide. Good to see you again, Steve.
Always a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
All right, so the CMHC out with its report today. It doesn't look much different on the surface than previous reports they've had on foreign ownership of condos in Canada. They say it is low single digits. It's mostly in newer builds. As you see these numbers and you think about your own experience in Vancouver, do they line up for you?
I mean, I think this is probably as good a data as we're going to get, obviously, but I think when we look at particularly the high end of the luxury detached housing market, I think one could certainly argue that the numbers is greater than what the statistics suggest. But I think if we sort of unpack the data there, you can sort of see that certain pockets are highly more concentrated than others. One of that being new construction condos. Built between the years 2016 and 2017, the share of non-resident ownership is upwards of 20%. So. And that sort of falls in line with what we've seen, like at least a feet on the ground perspective, is the pre-sale market has been quite dependent on foreign buying and foreign activity.
Now, if we want to take these numbers at face value that we get from the CMHC, low single digits in terms of foreign control of real estate, the argument's been made that even if these numbers are correct, and we're not even breaking into double digits, low teens, they have a bigger impact than you'd expect on a market in terms of price. The idea that the marginal buyer in the end is the one that sets the price. So if you have deep pockets, you want to get in the market no matter what, you drag up the costs for everyone else. Have you seen that in the market?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's obviously some more price-insensitive buyers, particularly when some of that money is coming, exiting out of China and is more of a, flight to safety than a real long-term purchase, right? It's more so, hey, I just got to get my money out. So they can be a little bit more price-insensitive. We really saw that in the boom years in sort of 2015, 2016, and maybe parts of 2017, but that has really died off over the last 18 months, and you can really see that hitting the luxury market, in particular that market. It's been hit very hard.
Yeah, it's a much different market in Vancouver now than it was at the frenzied peak, and Toronto obviously has come off of its frenzied peak as well. What do you think in the end, as we look back on the years that we had, was the real catalyst that drove the market into that frenzy, or was it a number of factors at play?
Yeah, as I've always said to people, we'll never be able to pinpoint one thing and say, hey, this was the cause of it. But I certainly think, in my opinion anyways, that the Chinese capital flight in sort of early 2015 into 2016 really started the party off. And I think locals ultimately binged on cheap credit and easy access to mortgages in order to keep up with that money coming in. And so I think right now where we have not only is the Chinese money pulled back through tightening of capital flows and increased taxes here in Vancouver, but you've also at the same time constricted domestic credit growth as well. So it's kind of you're tightening both at the same time.
I know the Attorney General of BC, David Eby, obviously had concerns about the housing market before his party came into government and he got the job of AG. He seems to be pretty concerned about money laundering and those proceeds finding their ways into different parts of the economy, including housing. Is it too early right now to try to figure out exactly what effect laundered money may have had in the housing market?
Yeah, I mean, I think early estimates are, what is it, $2 billion or something. So, I mean, that's not an insignificant amount. Obviously, it's always funny because these things always come to light as soon as the euphoria is over and people have time to actually digest what just what just happened. So I think there's a lot more to uncover, and that seems to be, the story continues to drag on here.
When I think about the Canadian real estate market over the past couple of years and the time that I've been sort of covering it in depth, Toronto, there's a certain sense of, wow, prices got out of control. What happened? I don't know if I can buy a house, but there hasn't been anger. I got a sense when I spoke to people on the ground in Vancouver that there was a real anger about what was happening in the city. Is that sort of that passion, that anger still alive in the city over the housing situation?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a polarizing topic. Politically, I think people are very politically divided on government, should they be meddling into the markets? You could argue free markets. I don't think we've ever had a free market, and then you have others that have been grown up here, lived here, and you have two full-time working, households, and they can barely afford to put a roof over their head, right? So I think that's part of the reason why we see, the NDP in government after 16 years of the BC Liberals, and a lot of these policies that I think under normal pretenses would be considered quite draconian in terms of, vacancy taxes, speculation taxes, anti-foreign buyer taxes. Those are considered, I think, quite aggressive, but those have been widely adopted by the public because I think there is a huge disdain for what's happened with local real estate prices.
All right, Steve, always great to get your insight. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks again.
Steve Saretsky is realtor and author of the Van City Condo Guide.